God bless you. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are watching from and the time you are watching this episode. My name is Apostle Daniel Emmanuel. I'm your brother. I welcome you again to this particular series. Actually, why we are coming online is not to tinkle your fancy or maybe because of the drive for content that is everywhere. But we have a burden from the Lord to bring clarity to several issues that bedevils our generation. One of the favors you are going to do to yourself and to your friends is to click the subscribe button and share this video as to many people as possible. God bless you. Why do we worship on Sundays as believers? I've had many people say different things. You see young people saying that the Bible said the Sabbath day, remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. And then when you count of it truth, you discover that it is Saturday that is the Sabbath day. Why then do believers worship on Sunday? Does it have any eternal implications? Does it have anything that is going to damage the faith? Even if not, why do we worship on Sundays? You discover that when God created man, I would say that God rested on the seventh day, and that was actually the reason why people began to worship on Sunday, starting from the Jewish origin. Sabbath was a day that God have just mapped out for believers, or for believers, especially people that are seeds of Abraham, to have rest and respect God. The reason why God brought out Sabbath was just that God was bringing a picture and a shadow of things to come. You see, the shadow of things to come. Sabbath is a shadow. In the book of Mark chapter 2 verse 27, Jesus said that Sabbath was made for man. Man was not made for the Sabbath. Sabbath is just a shadow. When you are seeing a shadow, the shadow is not the real thing. When the real thing comes, the shadow is no more important. So when you look at your Old Testament Bible, you discover that everything that happened in the Old Testament was just a shadow of the things to come. Christ is the end of the Sabbath. According to the scriptures, you will see that the Bible says that Christ is the end of the Sabbath. What does it mean? It means that Christ is Sabbath. And the reason why God brought Sabbath was to declare, in fact, Sabbath was Christ. So when we give our life to Christ, every man who has given his life to Christ, according to Hebrews chapter 4, has entered into his rest, which is Sabbath. So it means that by being a Christian, we are all not, in fact, we are all Sabbath. We have entered into our own rest. Sabbath is not just about a day. Sabbath is about a person, and that person is Christ. That's number one reason why believers do not observe days, or most believers do not observe Saturday as a Sabbath day. Number one is that Christ is our Sabbath. And the book of Colossians chapter 2 said that we should not allow anybody to judge us as to the matter of celebrating days, celebrating months, or whatever. The Bible said that every day is holy unto the Lord. Whichever day you want to celebrate, don't allow anybody to judge you. So when you see people saying things about Sabbath, saying many things, and they say people that go to church on Sundays, that they are wrong, it is a lie. The reason is because when you read your Bible, you will see that the reason for Sabbath was actually because God was creating a picture that day of rest is Jesus. And every man who is a sinner and finally encounters Christ, that man has entered into Christ, and Christ is your rest. That's number one. Then the last thing I want to say concerning the reason why we worship on Sundays is Jesus rose from the dead on the first day of the week. And when you check the New Testament principle, you will discover that everybody that has gathered for fellowship, most times they've gathered just because Jesus rose up on the first day. The Bible said on the first day of the week. Mary Magdalene and the other people, John chapter 20, you will discover that all of them were going to the tomb, and that was the day that Jesus rose from the dead. So, and then you will see Paul giving instructions in different scriptures in the book of Corinthians that when you gather as you used to do on the first day of the week. So it means that the church after Christ died, which is the Sabbath, began to gather on the first day of the week, because the person that we are following his footsteps, which is Christ, according to Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2, and then 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 21, you will see that Christ is our example. So when he died, he's the author and finisher of our faith. We began to celebrate our services. We began to gather for worship on Sundays. Now, this thing does not mean that Sunday is the day. If you go to a United Arab Emirates, you go to UAE countries and you travel, there are places that when you go to, people worship on Fridays, people worship on Tuesdays. What it means is that any day you bring out for worship becomes your Sabbath. And then for a believer, every day is a Sabbath, because every day is the day that you should worship. This issue of whether Sunday or Saturday is a Sabbath day should not trouble you and should not make you to think that those that are worshiping God on Sundays are in error, or to also think that those that are worshiping God on Saturdays are in error. If Jesus is our motive, if Jesus is our foundation, if Jesus is our message, then whichever day we choose to worship Jesus does not matter, and it doesn't have eternal consequence. Please click the subscribe button and share this video with as many people as you can, so that they can also get blessed. See you some other time. God bless you.